The regular meeting of the Police Conduct Oversight Commission Audit Subcommittee will now begin.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the regular meeting of the Police Conduct Oversight Commission Audit Subcommittee for September 27th, 2021. I'm Robert Jackson Pino, and I'm the chair of the subcommittee. As we begin, I'll note for the record that this meeting has remote participation by members and city staff as authorized under Minnesota Statute Section 13D.021 due to the declared local public health emergency. This meeting will be recorded and posted to the city's website and YouTube channel as a means of increasing public access and transparency. This meeting is public and subject to Minnesota's open meeting law. At this time, I will ask the clerk to call the roll so we can verify a quorum is present for this meeting.
Commissioner Crockett.
Here.
Commissioner Sparks.
Here.
Chair Pino.
Here.
There are 3 members present.
Let the record reflect we have a quorum. Next, we'll proceed to the adoption of both our agenda and the meeting minutes from August 23rd, 2021. May I have a motion to adopt both the agenda and the minutes?
As Commissioner Sparks, I'll make a motion to adopt agenda and minutes. Just need a second. Second.
We have a motion and a second. Could the clerk please call the roll?
Commissioner Crockett.
Yeah, aye.
Commissioner Sparks.
Aye.
Chair Pino.
Aye.
There are 3 ayes.
Both the agenda for today's meeting as well as the minutes for August 2021 have been accepted. Next in order of business is the acceptance of public comment. I will open the floor to invite comments from members of the community. We'll limit public comment to no more than 2 minutes per speaker. With that, are there any community members on the line who wish to address the subcommittee? I know we have 2 people joining by phone and 1 additional guest. I'll provide a few more minutes in case either of those individuals want to leave public comment. Remember to hit *6 to unmute yourself. All right, hearing none. We'll move on to our next item of business, in which we take up unfinished business from our August meeting, starting with item 5 on our agenda, no-knock warrants. And I do believe if you look at limbs, we do have a few items attached to this particular item in our agenda that I do believe are updates from last month. And if it's possible, could we have Christopher Brand give us any sort of context and updates in terms of the no-knock warrant study?
Yep, so the study is proceeding. Some of the questions that were posed as part of the study are a little bit time intensive for each individual case. So for the moment, I'm proceeding with what we talked about before as far as, answering those questions, having the case samples from the dates we selected, but I'm starting with a smaller pool and then moving out, if that makes sense, just because it's taking time to review the different aspects.
Sure.
There's a lot of manual review of it, and then some of the reports or some of the reports don't actually have the search warrant attached, which means then to get that we'd have to go to court records. So it's kind of some of the issues we talked about early on with things being in different places. But as far as being able to identify the dates and the data, that's all set, and we're proceeding with that. The question on arrest warrants, that is a bit more difficult to find an answer to at this stage. I don't have one yet. It's just to do with the way in which those, as far as I'm aware, those are not to be filed with the court in quite the same way. So just finding a list of those. There are dedicated police units to go and pick people up on warrants. But then there are also, we talked about this before, task forces made up of metro agencies that do that as well. So I think finding that information specific to MPD might be a little bit difficult. Still working on that part.
Okay. Yeah. I am looking at the PDF entitled No Knock Search Warrant Sample Q1 2020. I do have a few questions just to make sure, I have a better understanding of this. First, in terms of terminology, totally get narcotics and firearms. What does GIT stand for?
So GIT was the gang interdiction team.
Okay. Yep.
Yep, I understand that. Shortening that probably wasn't that helpful. That was the only one from that group that I could find. The other ones are all listed as firearms or narcotics investigations.
Yeah, totally makes sense. But as long as I know what it means. Also, you were kind of talking about this, and I'd love to hear, you elaborate a little bit more on, a pragmatic view of doing this study in a timely way. Like, first thing when I see this first page is like, ooh, that's a real small sample size. And
yeah, so that sample size was just to get us some graphs and some data so we could check the methodologies we wanted to pursue. Okay. The final totals, we should be able to look at a much larger amount. I was thinking more in the range of 25 to 100.
Yeah, because I remember last time we were talking about this, and of course I don't have somewhere in this notebook. Was it 140-ish? Is that number that's coming out of thin air for me for some reason, or did that have a?
I think that might have been in for the year.
For the year,
if I remember correctly. So if we're doing it by the quarters, then assuming roughly a quarter of that.
Okay.
Which I think is doable to review all the search warrants in a particular quarter if we're looking at those kind of numbers. 31
in Q1 is what I have written down here, which makes sense. Okay, and I think that's in terms of sample size, that I don't think we'll have a problem there, especially in a full year. If we get over 150, that seems great. But as far as time intensiveness, what do you think, given the 10 samples you have here versus ideally getting through like a whole composite year, obviously because 2020 was weird, 4 quarters worth of data, is that gonna be more in terms of time? Is that going to be something that'll take weeks, months?
I think it would definitely be possible to have our data kind of, I know pool isn't quite the correct term, but have our data set completed and reviewed within a month or two.
Okay.
As far as having the report itself finalized, I still think we'd be on track to have that done by the end of the year. Obviously, any draft data, we could certainly get something together to have published before then.
Yeah. Okay. I'm just trying to think about how that piece obviously is, it's the momentum builder, and we need to make sure that we are able to not have that prevent us from moving forward. And I assume, you talked about joint task forces. Is the final sample here at the bottom, precinct number non-MPLS? Was that part of a joint task force, or did that just happen to be, for some reason, outside of our geographic jurisdiction?
Yeah, so that was an MPD search warrant done outside of the jurisdiction or outside the city limits of Minneapolis.
Okay.
There are various reasons why that might occur, but mostly it would be they're following an investigation that's outside the city, and maybe that jurisdiction doesn't have a SWAT team, or there isn't. Yeah, a lot of it. Once you get into the suburban areas, they often share a SWAT team between numerous jurisdictions.
Yep. Okay. Um, does anybody have questions? I mean, for Christopher, in terms of either the data or the timeline, just to make sure that, we feel comfortable about the speed of this, and how, I want to make sure that it is, we're heading in the right direction in terms of pace, or I guess heading at the right speed in terms of pace.
Yeah, I think it sounds okay personally, as long as Chris is willing to put in the work. It's unfortunate that there's so much manual effort involved. We appreciate you doing that and kind of explaining it to us. But I think we maybe expected it was going to be more challenging in that regard.
So for timeline, so to get your thoughts on this, I'm thinking have the draft data set compiled and ready to be reviewed by the October meeting, draft report by the November meeting, and then aim to have the finalized report by December. Would that be a good timeline for you?
I think that would be great. And if that's something that is within your capacity, I think that's the best that we can ask for right now.
Yeah, and I think that's the goal to work towards. If anything delays that in any way, then communicate about that. But I think that's a realistic goal to work towards.
Now, one thing that I want to just throw out there, because we've been kind of touching on it, all of these that you're looking at right now are in the no-knock warrant category. And how are we going to incorporate, because the crux of this entire evaluation right now is a comparison between no-knock and knocked warrants, announced, unannounced, right? When you get the draft data together, will we be looking at announced and unannounced in the same data set, so that way we can compare at least summary statistics between those two groups?
Yes. Yeah. So these ones were pulled from 1280 deployments, which is SWAT.
Yep.
We would expect them to only really be on unannounced warrants. Yep. But yeah, there are other specialist units, so we might not have a citywide pool of all unannounced. Sure. But I think what we're seeing here, looking at this data, is that it is pretty heavily focused on narcotics and firearms, a little bit of gang team. Those are all distinct units that have a distinct unit number that we could search for to find those.
Yeah. No, I get it. It's they're labeled as high risk. That's the justification that they use. I just want to make sure that when we come down to the end of this study, that we are trying to compare apples to apples as much as we can, and some components constructively will show that no-knock warrants are employed in more dangerous scenarios, and we just need to be aware of that when we're making these assessments. I don't want us to go in and say no-knock warrants have X sort of impact where the announced warrants don't have X sort of impact, and then not also highlight the fact that the context by which these two are being applied might differ in some ways.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks for your work on that. And I don't see Andrew Hawkins on in the meeting room again today. Do you know whether or not he is planning to join us for a discussion on coaching, or? I'm
afraid I do not know.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not in the meeting.
Okay. Let's if we don't have any other points to bring up regarding item 5 on our agenda, we can move on to a discussion on coaching. Any suggestions to stay here? If not, we'll move on. All right. We'll move to item 6, our discussion on coaching. Last time we did have Mr. Hawkins here. He did give us a 1 month update as best as he could regarding that there is ongoing investigations into the coaching matter overall that has an ability to impact our exploration, if you will, which has prevented him from being able to be at this meeting last month because he was in a meeting at the same time. I haven't been able to get in touch with him since, so I don't have a report to this subcommittee on coaching since he presented to us 2 months ago now. Last month, we did have a shorter conversation with just the 3 of us on really the direction that we want to see this going in. If you guys remember, we had the conversation of what the policy of coaching is with the larger group. We were talking about how we want to be able to evaluate the practice of coaching and find areas where the policy and the practice might differ, acknowledge areas where policy or practice reflects policy, and be able to, at some point, consider what mechanically would change if we were to have changes to coaching at the city level that still comply with the Minnesota Data Practices Act, because that is an inherent aspect of this that tends to work its way into these conversations. The idea that full transparency from some people's minds comes at the cost of privacy of civil servants. That's about all I have here on my notes and the recollection that I have of this. And there really isn't an item, a discussion item or a document attached to this in our agenda because we haven't gotten an update from staff. The only thing I can think to do is, formally just have it directed by the subcommittee to say staff needs an update, and we need, or as in the subcommittee needs an update, and we would like staff to provide us with an update as to where this investigation or this exploration into coaching is going, and are we able to move forward on a full audit and evaluation or not. But I don't have the answers for you. I'm not either on staff or, the city attorney's office. So that's about what I have there for the 3 of us. Any thoughts or questions regarding the idea of just, have the clerk directing staff to provide us with a summary and update from a pragmatic step forward in this evaluation?
Yeah, I think asking staff to provide an update, like directing the clerk to ask staff, sounds like a good idea to me. I'm not sure where else to go. In normal work circumstances, you just reach out to somebody directly or email them, but privacy laws
Yeah.
preclude us from doing that. It's not as easy as calling someone or sending an email and just relaying the update. We have to do it as part of the team effort. So I don't have any other ideas.
And I apologize, guys. I took it as a given that because staff was regularly coming to this meetings, and I'm sure there's no ill intent here. There might just be a logistics issue, like a new meeting came up or something. And so maybe this extra formal step of just saying, hey, we do need a staff update on this at every meeting. We need someone who is on staff working on this to speak on it, to be there at these meetings. Otherwise, it's an item on our agenda that isn't moving forward. And we at least need to move forward in a way that shows that we are doing the work that the greater commission has asked of us. This has been referred to us, so we need to be working on it. I have nothing else. And that is the final item on our unfinished business.
Chair Pino,
Yes.
Chair, with your permission, I added a staff direction in the chat. If perhaps someone would like to make that motion. If that captures what you want.
Yes. As moderator of this meeting, I will leave it to someone. I know it's probably a formality. Just want to have someone else read it, so that way it's not just me, from on high saying this. But yeah.
Fine. Unless you want to call the roll. I mean, it's fine with me. Looks
Yeah.
good.
Everything's good. Then I am seeing general consensus from the subcommittee that we would direct staff to provide an update on the status of coaching at the October audit subcommittee meeting, specifically including the ability or inability for us to continue moving forward in the greater context of ongoing investigations into coaching. Is that fair, Madam Clerk?
Yes, I'm just typing that up in the chat so that you can take a look at it.
Okay.
And does that cover it, or do you want to wordsmith that a little bit?
I'm not seeing a new one.
Basically, it was
yeah.
specifically including the feasibility of the subcommittee moving forward on ongoing work and a research and study on this matter.
Yes, I think that's fine.
Great.
And thank you very much. With no other items on our agenda, and unless I hear something from members of our subcommittee, I believe we've included all items that we wanted to talk about for this meeting. And seeing no further business before us, and without objection, I'll declare this meeting adjourned. All right. Have a good one, guys. I will see you soon.
Right.
Thank you very much for staff who joined.